The United States versus the world. Who would win? I'm from Germany. Germany tried to fight the world 1.5 times, yeah, and both the times the Germans lost. So let's see how American would do. I hope this does not encourage any Americans to start a war. But let's see, I'm actually curious, because US is obviously the biggest power in the world, but against the whole world, I don't know if they can take on the whole world.
A superpower can be defined as a state with the ability to project power or exert influence on a global scale, usually in more than one region at a time. Even today, with the rise of China, the US still remains by far the most powerful country.
Absolutely.
Still far outstripping competitors in national power.
Yeah, when I think military, I think about the US. If you think about any movie that's been made about military and helicopters, whenever the world is fighting Godzilla or aliens, I feel like it's always the Americans stepping up with the military power. They usually use against aliens and shit like that, but this is not about aliens, this is just about military power. The military budget's higher, there's just more of an emphasis on the military, it's more celebrated too. Because in Germany, going to the military is not a thing you can be proud of. You know, here it's like veterans, they get discounts, and it's an honorable thing, which I think it should be when you serve your country. In Germany, it's not, because, you know, obviously the history of Germany, we lost 2 wars, so there's a bit more shame around the whole thing. But America kind of celebrates the military more, because it's by far the most powerful in the world.
It still has 3 times China's wealth and 5 times its military
3 times the wealth, that's crazy.
And that's not to mention its enormous advantages in geography, demographics, and more.
Yeah.
All things considered, it doesn't seem likely that the US is losing its status as global hegemon anytime soon. But hypothetically, what would happen if America found itself in a conflict against the entire rest of the world?
That's crazy.
Would the country still have the power to achieve victory, or would it be worn down and defeated?
That's crazy though. The US versus the world. The world. You know, I'm wondering if they consider the US also having allies, because if it's just the US as a country against every other country, I can't see America winning. You know what I'm saying? I mean, America is obviously more powerful economically than China and Germany, but Germany and China combined, plus France, England, all the other countries. By the way, this conflict would obviously never happen, because, you know, it'd be weird if like France and England, historically always having been allies of the US, really joined them. How could this happen? Some people think that Trump is gonna cause another war and this could happen. I don't think so. I think he's too goofy. You know what I mean? People always compare him to Hitler. I think that's like, you know, that's a little too far. You know, I don't think he wants to start any wars.
Because of its diplomatic and economic ties around the world, as well as its huge arsenal of nuclear weapons, the US has almost entirely removed the possibility of real war with Europe and many other countries.
Yeah, because there's so much trade that's happening between the US and Europe. I think they would shoot themselves in the foot if they started a war with everybody. Because the world is not like it used to be, where every country was kind of autonomous. It is kind of heavily dependent on other countries. Like America needs parts from China. They need, like, it's all connected economically. So I couldn't see that happening. But
possibility still shows us a lot about US power and how it might look in the coming years.
Okay.
For the purpose of this video, we'll exclude nuclear weapons and assume that such a conflict would break out after a period of heightened global tensions, rather than as a surprise attack.
If nuclear weapons were used, humanity might cease to exist, truly. There's a lot of theories about this, because if you look at nuclear weapons, how powerful they were when they were used against Japan, the power is now so many times stronger than before, and maybe this is only what's classified. I really don't want to know genuinely what scientists are working on when it comes to classified information. I really don't want to know what people are working on behind the scenes. There's probably technology out there that is so much more destructive than anything we can ever imagine, especially with AI on the rise right now, developing things at a pace that it's unfathomable for our minds. I can see an atomic bomb that's 1,000 times stronger than the one in Japan that is probably available right now. So if atomic bombs are in the equation, which they probably would be if there's a conflict of that scale, you can probably wipe out the entire West Coast with a couple of nuclear bombs. That's the scariest part about modern warfare, in my opinion, is the size and scale of weapons. Because I just watched Gladiator, dudes were fighting with spears. That's scary, but it's not nearly as scary as somebody just going ploop, and then a city is gone, you know?
The biggest challenges to the US in terms of actual military capability would certainly be China. Western European nations would be a close second, as they are wealthy and have stockpiles of advanced weapons.
Germany, I hate that Germany once again is part of this. Can we just sit one out? Can we just chill for once? Can we just, like, one war be like, you know what, you guys figure it out. We're just gonna be Switzerland in this. Why does Germany always have to be part of the fucking wars? I hate it. It's never worked out for us. By that logic, if Germany is part of one of the teams, then that team will lose. Just historically, based on odds, I would say it's definitely the underdog. But let's see.
India is another potential player. with the world's largest population and substantial military hardware. Together, China, Russia, India, and Europe account for the majority of the world's military spending outside
crazy
of the
team.
US. In our hypothetical, let's say these countries all align against the US, with the rest of the world primarily contributing
Canada too.
materiel or financial support. While this is extremely simplified, the fact of the matter is that most countries do not have the resources to project power beyond their borders or immediate region, making an attack on the US impossible.
That's crazy, because it feels like the US are just the power of the world. It feels like the US are kind of like the protector of the West, if that makes sense. The US kind of took it on themselves to protect the Western world from communism. That's kind of been the whole thing with the Cold War. So I feel like the other countries have just been kind of cooperating with the US. The US have just taken on that role. You know, in Germany there's tons of US military bases. There are military bases all over Europe. There's military bases in South Korea. And America is the main power in it, though. I think the other countries just cooperate with America. America just took on the leader role when it comes to the military protection of the world. That's very fascinating that other countries don't have the capabilities of going beyond their own borders. That's kind of crazy. But it makes sense because we have so many contracts and that connect us with the US that a war like this would obviously never break out and there'd be a lot of military cooperation. But this is very fascinating. Okay.
The first major difficulty with a global offensive against the US would be geographic.
Yeah,
Surrounded
the US
by
is
water
protected.
on two sides, and Mexico and Canada to the north and south, any physical attack against the US would face major challenges. First, it would mean mounting either an enormous amphibious assault from one of the coasts, or attempting to invade via land. But the deserts in the southwest and the Great Lakes in the Midwest insulate the country's major population centers.
Maybe that's why Trump wanted to build the wall, so that troops can't come through and attack America via land. I don't know, it's just a thought,
An invasion from outside North America would require massive fronts and long supply chains across the Pacific or Atlantic Oceans, leading to a dramatic reduction of overall power projection. Military expert Dylan Lurk has noted that even the largest amphibious assault in history on either the west coast or the east coast would be too insignificant to acquire an effective beachhead. If every foreign power managed to coordinate such a massive operation and do so while remaining undetected under the enormous reach and power of the American intelligence apparatus, it would still have issues building up a force of any significant size before being pushed back into the sea.
That's a crazy statement. So if the whole world was like, hey, let's attack America, and every single boat we have, every guy who has a fucking yacht in Russia, every oligarch who goes to Ibiza in the summer holidays, we're gonna load that thing up with guns and we're gonna make our way to America, even then, America would still remain undefeated. That's a crazy thing to think about. Because if you think about the size of America, both in terms of population and actual size, it's not that big. The whole Central America is so much bigger than the United States of America. Canada is bigger. Like, it seems crazy to me that there's no possibility, you know? Because America, when they came and supported the Allies with D-Day in Normandy, it seems like they got a lot of troops over there. I mean, the water is a geographical distance, but Jesus fucking Christ, man. Not that I want to start a war, but that seems kind of crazy that we can't even take one country on with all of our military personnel. That's crazy.
The strategic Hawaiian island chain acts as a gateway to the US mainland for attacks from the Pacific, and is protected by a significant military presence. Similarly, military installations in Alaska provide protection against any invasion from along the Arctic or Northwest. An attack from Mexico would probably be more feasible due to the Great Lakes blocking much of the Canadian border. But California and Texas have the largest concentration of defense industries and military bases in the country.
Can you imagine California and Texas working together? It just seems so weird that they were going to be like, we're going to work together on this, because they seem like the states that hate each other the most in the US.
With the southwestern desert spanning the two regions, the Southwest is also home to multiple heavily armed military bases, such as the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico or NORAD headquarters in Colorado. An attack launched from Canada on the Midwest or the West would be limited to light infantry and would likely fail to take over population centers or other important strategic points.
That's crazy. If I had to guess, I would probably invade, because I've been on tour doing stand-up comedy, which, by the way, you can check out my tour dates here at MauryAdrian.com. Yeah, I'm coming all over the US, Baltimore, Arlington, Houston, Texas, Austin, Atlanta. I'm doing a lot of shows. And to me, when I've been traveling the US, I did shows in Minnesota, and I thought to myself, the people here seem so friendly. They seem to be the easiest to invade. I really had that thought. So I think if I had to start this operation, I would never go through the South. I would not go through Texas. They seem very tough. But I would go through the Midwest because they seem very friendly and stuff. And I think, we can concentrate all the forces up north and go through the Midwest. And I think that's the way to go. It's crazy to me that Hawaii is such a presence because it's such small islands. There's not a lot of landmass there. The fact that they can actually prevent an invasion is mind-blowing to me. Because I think you could just take over some islands. It's not hard, but apparently it is, man. Fucking crazy, dude.
Dr. Beckley makes this point as well, stating that the United States is a natural economic hub and military fortress.
Yeah.
It's packed with resources and has more economic arteries like navigable waterways and ports than the rest of the world combined.
That is so true about America, because America has a lot of biodiversity and a lot of climate diversity. It seems like they are very self-sufficient when it comes to that. There's some countries like Saudi Arabia. I feel like it's the same kind of climate, and America is so freaking diverse. And I think America does not really need the rest of the world as much. I'm saying in terms of iPhones and some rare metals and stuff like that. I'm sure some resources are limited to a degree, but if any country could pull it off, it's probably America. Because, they probably have a little bit of everything to really be their own country without trading much with the outside world. And I think that's kind of like what Trump wants to do. He wants to bring a lot of business back to America, relying less on imports, introducing tariffs on everything. So, say what you want about Trump. Maybe he's preparing America, for a war against the world. It's just a theory. Who knows? Who knows?
The US is also by far the most heavily armed civilian population
That's a good point.
world, with a staggering 120 guns for every 100 people.
There's no freaking way. 120 guns for every 100 people. That is insane. But I don't think that means that every person has a gun. It just means that some people have 20 guns. I think that's kind of like the math, but that's still insane. I would have guessed maybe 10% of the population has own gun. Maybe because I've mainly lived in New York and now in California where, I don't see that many guns. But for sure, when I went to the South on my tour, I definitely saw more guns. It's always fun to me as a German to see when you go to a mall, there's a sign, hey, you can't bring your gun in here. It's so funny because we don't have these signs in Germany, right? Because we don't have guns anymore. Because the last time we did have guns, it didn't go so well for us. So we kind of stay away from them. Yeah, oopsie whoopsie. Yeah, big oopsie whoopsie. That is crazy though. But you're right. I think America, safe to say, besides from the American military apparatus and all the actual military that's trained, you just have civilians fight in an unorganized manner, kind of like Mr. Beast, right? Put all the nationalities into a freaking world and do a free-for-all kind of fighting game. I think Americans would win. I think it's safe to say that Americans are the most armed motherfuckers out there. If there's a zombie apocalypse of some sort, I think I would follow the American. I would not follow the German. I would not. I don't know. We just don't have that mentality at all anymore. I would not follow the Germans. I wouldn't follow French people. They always seem like they surrender very quickly. So I would follow the American for sure. That's a very good point. On top of military, America has the advantage of having every dude in Texas with a pickup truck. They can load up that pickup truck and just make some shit happen, and that is amazing. I just watched this movie called Civil War, which is a very sad movie, way more sad than I expected. But I don't want to spoiler it, but there was a rebellion and some dude who just armed themselves. It was California and Texas working together. They just overtook the US government in a civil war scenario, and they're just civilians basically. So I think there's something to this. Americans are just, they're good at shooting guns, dude. Yeah. Comment below if I should make a video going to a gun range. I want to shoot a gun. I think it'd be fun. If I went to a gun range and filmed it in a vlog, let me know if you want to see that.
This means that even if a coalition of other countries was able to actually get troops into the US, it would end up facing an incredibly well-armed and pissed off insurgency.
They would face an incredibly pissed off population. That is so funny. Dude, Americans would be pissed, dude. They would be actually angry. One thing you don't want is pissed Americans. Pissed and armed Americans, truly is. Has never gone well. Has never gone well, yeah. I was in Texas when the Dallas Cowboys lost the game. They look pissed, man. I don't want to say anything. I was scared of those guys. They look very scary. And, they must be even more pissed when they get attacked. Have you seen any movies? You don't want to fuck with America. That's the baseline. I've seen enough war movies where America always wins, even against aliens. I don't know if I'm too afraid of American civilians at large. I'm specifically afraid of Texans because I think they're the most alpha ones. I wouldn't be too afraid. To be honest, dude, if the world had to fight 50 Californias, I think we'd be good. Just the people, because it seems like they're not as ready ready for war. You know what I mean? I mean, the people I see here in California, no offense, but I don't feel like, you know, they're too busy doing wheatgrass shots and hot yoga. I don't think they would be as suitable for warfare. But Texas, bro, I think we'd have a problem with that. That's the state I'd be most worried about as a European if I started a war with America.
In the weeks before the sort of global conflict in our hypothetical, the US would most likely pull its forces out of the most vulnerable, non-American bases in Europe, Asia, and the Pacific, concentrating its resources in places where the US exercises greater territorial control to act as staging areas.
Wow.
Some areas would be considered too important to abandon, especially those supporting the military's supply chain, US oil assets, and key territorial choke points. One of the first battlefields in any conflict between the US and the rest of the world would be the Middle East. Here, one may...
Why is it always the frickin' Middle East, dude? The Middle East is, I think, in the recent history, for sure, the most war-torn place in the world. They just can't stop, dude. Because I was thinking about that. There's a lot of military bases in Germany, famously in Ramstein. You know, in Germany, there's a ton of... Every American I meet here that says, oh my God, I lived in Germany. I was like, military? They're like, yep. So there must be an insane amount of military bases all over Europe. But if a conflict broke out, I thought the Europeans would just take over those bases in Europe and then own the supplies. But I guess the US can just withdraw it. But that's insane, man. The Middle East is still so important.
The DoD, as carried out by US Central Command, would be to secure critical US oil refineries and distribution centers, as well as gain control of the sea lanes used for transporting oil out of the region.
It's crazy that oil is still playing such a big role in this, you know? I feel like oil has played such a big role for so freaking long. It's ridiculous, man.
And 67.1% of OPEC reserves are in the Middle East.
Crazy.
Similarly, over 60% of the world's oil passes through shipping lanes in the Arabian Sea alone.
I didn't know that much oil was inside. I knew it was a lot of oil, but I thought America had some oil. Why does the rest of the world not have more oil? The small countries have all the oil. Seems like an unfair advantage.
But control of some Middle Eastern reserves would make guaranteeing a supply much easier. Similarly, it would allow the US to deny oil to much of the rest of the world and undermine the coalition's economies and military production. Europe, which would represent the US's most significant adversary, receives a significant amount of its crude oil and natural gas from the Middle East.
That's the thing, yeah. Europe is very dependent on other people's oil. I mean, I can specifically speak for Germany. There's a huge energy crisis in Germany. I don't know if Americans realize this, but Germany, especially when the war with Ukraine broke out, Germany was very dependent on Russian gas. Once the war broke out, there's been sanctions placed on Russian gas, so Germans are really out of gas, if that makes sense, which is ironic, because, you know, it's a little edgy, yeah, but it's true, man. We Germans are out of gas, you know, which is maybe a good thing, but therefore, yeah, energy prices are really surging in Germany. And Germany's really suffering from that. So I think Europe is more dependent on other countries than the US, if that makes sense. It seems like it. And that's a huge advantage for America. Let's go America, dude. Good thing is I'm in America now, you know, so I'm safe, dude. I'm gonna abandon my German citizenship real quick once that happens.
At the start of the conflict, the US would first strike at oil-related facilities across the Middle East, using carrier-based strike aircraft plus medium and long-range ballistic missiles. US power projection means that even without bases in Afghanistan, the military could easily hit targets anywhere from the Mediterranean to the Strait of Hormuz. While regional powers could offer some resistance, none of them have anywhere close to the manpower or firepower needed to stop the US in an all-out war.
That is crazy that the US can just target a country that's so far away and just get away with it. Because the thing is, like, now it's not just about population and people anymore, it's really about technology. Like, there could be a country run by 10 people that can just wipe out a country of like 200 million people because of technology. That's the crazy thing. Like, if you think about warfare now, it's changed drastically to what it was before. Because if you think before, sure, it was about technology. At some point, it became more and more about technology. But at some point, you can just outman people. If you have like 200,000 soldiers and you're the Roman Empire and you're fighting some Germanic tribes and they're half of them, that's just a numbers game at that point. But technology really changed warfare. Think about how smart AI is with everything. AI does everything better. I just went into a self-driving car, a Waymo. There can probably be some like a kamikaze bomber, like what Top Gun did, what Tom Cruise does, and AI does better. You know, it perfectly can do shit like that. Oh man, this is crazy. America is also, when it comes to AI, is pretty much on the forefront with OpenAI and all these companies. And if OpenAI and all these AI companies concentrated their efforts on warfare, I think that would just multiply the military power of the US, if that makes sense. So, dude, crazy thoughts, yeah? Crazy, yeah. Wow.
While Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and several others do have modern fighter jets and other weaponry, even they would not last very long up against the might of the DoD. And because each is an independent country, Intelligence and resource sharing among them would also be limited, further reducing the region's ability to stand up to the US in a shooting war. Most of their assets' signals would also likely be jammed by America's powerful electronic warfare capabilities, which would disrupt enemy communications, targeting, and guidance systems across the region.
That is crazy too, yeah, of course. It's also a matter of if the whole world joined together, it's not that easy for them to find a common ground, right? Even if they're united, there's still gonna be a lot of fighting inside it, like on how to do things and how to conduct things. Unless there was like a world government where there was one leader, like it sounds weird, but like if there's one leader who makes decision for the whole, that would make it more powerful because then you don't have the whole communication. I think there'd be a lot of like internal, I think if this could happen, there could be somewhat of a civil war breaking out inside of the country, because even countries that are at war right now, like Israel or Russia, they're not unified on their actions. They're very much divided inside the country. So that is crazy that electronic warfare and hacking play such a big role into this too. It's changed so much. I think if the United States versus the world was done like 100 years ago, before we had this crazy technological advancement, I think the US would have no chance. It's just a numbers game. There's more resources, there's more of that, but now with intelligence and being able to hack and jam communications of these United Nations, that is insane, dude. That's such an interesting thought experiment. And the fact that the US would still win a war over the Middle East is ridiculous. Like, that is a crazy thought. If they're all working together against the US, they would still not stand up. What are we doing? What are we doing? Here's a comment about the cybersecurity. Somebody saying the US is often considered hilariously weak for its spending in cybersecurity. They're saying that Russia and China both have closed internet networks, while the US is open due to freedom of speech, which actually is more vulnerable to attacks for that reason. That's a very interesting point, because obviously we want a freedom of speech, and in China, I've been to China before, you can't use regular apps, it's all very controlled, which basically makes it harder to attack and infiltrate as well. There's always a trade-off between freedom and security, and China and Russia might be more secure because they don't have as much freedom, which is a very interesting point. So in that way, it might be easier to infiltrate American cybersecurity versus China's or Russia's, which is actually a crazy important point when it comes to warfare. If Europe or the rest of the world would be able to infiltrate America's cybersecurity and break into that or hack it, I think that could be game over real quickly. It's very interesting.
The greatest threat to US control of the Middle East in our scenario comes from ground-based air defenses, as even older systems can shoot unsuspecting fighter jets from the sky. However, unlike Russia's recent experience in Ukraine, the US has actually proven that it can effectively destroy another nation's air defense network, as it did during Desert Storm in the 1990s. Today, this might be even easier due to the enormous arsenal of drones the US has access to, as well as fourth-generation jets like the F-15, while its more modern F-18s and F-22s could evade all but the best air defense systems.
This thing looks evil. Just look how this thing looks. This looks so futuristic. It looks like a raven of destruction just in the air. Dude, it's insane what kind of progress you made. Think about mankind and what kind of progress we've made in terms of technology in the last 15 years. And if this happens even more, crazy.
After establishing air superiority, the US would then work to control all choke points into and out of the region, especially the easily blocked Suez Canal, where over 12% of global trade passes through. If it was able to effectively keep regional control over the Middle East and its resources, the US would have a decent shot at winning against the rest of the world.
This is crazy. This will be, I think America is also the most savvy in, strategy and coming up with what routes to block. Holy shit, man.
As of this video, there are 47 aircraft carriers around the world. The largest 11 of these are all nuclear-powered carriers belonging to the US, which have more than twice the combined total deck space of every other country combined.
Oh my God.
The Pacific Fleet fields 7 of these, and in a global war could use them to deny access to anything approaching the US mainland. Again, oil would be another top concern, and the US could use its massive navy to gain control of the Strait of Malacca.
It's just ridiculous to me, because I think Germany lost the Second World War for the most part because they were fighting on two fronts, the Eastern Front and the Western Front. America is fighting all the fronts, like legitimately from all fronts, and they still cannot be penetrated. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is insane. They're like, okay, they're coming from the East, they're coming from the West, they're coming from the North, they're coming from the South. We got it. We're America. We got it. Like, that's insane, dude.
The US would also likely exert its naval power in the South China Sea, which it could use to launch strikes against China, Japan, the Philippines, or any other regional power, Heavy fighting would ensue across the sea and air domains all around the South China Sea, and could account for the heaviest US casualties in any theater of this hypothetical war.
America is not only not being penetrated by the rest of the world, but America is also actively invading Asia. Like, this is ridiculous, man. I thought it was just a thought experiment of, oh, could the US, like, you know, withstand an attack? Because at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure defending is easier than attacking, right? I mean, in this scenario, if you're the defending nation, it's easier because you can withdraw, you have your own infrastructure, you know, you just have to push people out. Like, getting somewhere, moving troops, it costs a lot of energy and time and resources and all this stuff. So the fact that the US is not only defending themselves, it's not just the world that's trying to attack and they can't come through. No, the US is actually going to push them back and then invade and create a world that is just America. Can you imagine a world that's just America? Can you just imagine a world where everywhere you go, they play football? Pretty cool. That's wild, man. That's a little scary. Please don't do it, America. Don't do it, man. I'd be curious about this conflict if America was actually trying to, as America now, trying to take over the world. Because that'd be harder too. Because then America would have to go to Europe, or America would have to go to, you know, so that could be a bit more difficult. But this is a fascinating experiment.
Another potential target is Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Where over 90% of the world's advanced microchips are currently fabricated.
See, that's what I mean. It's so interesting now that a lot of the military efforts of a country are geared towards technological hubs. So I think wherever you have microchips, like rare metals, that kind of stuff is becoming so much more important. That's why I'm surprised that oil still plays such a big role, because I thought now with maybe nuclear power or other ways of generating energy, that would be less important. I'm shocked that oil is still that important, but then of course Taiwan, with microchips, you take over a small country like that and then all of a sudden, you know, you have a lot of power. That's crazy. Maybe that's why China wants to take over Taiwan.
The US might even need to seize and try to occupy the island to stop the global coalition from dominating the production of modern electronics.
That's crazy.
To do so, the US would inevitably have to challenge China as well.
Let's go. Okay,
Chinese
US versus
air
China.
defenses and ballistic missile capabilities are already powerful alone, and if combined with the assets of every other country in the region, could potentially pose a problem for the US. The naval base on Guam would be especially vulnerable to strikes by ballistic missiles, which could overwhelm its limited air defenses.
Poor
Even
Guam.
so, the US Navy is so powerful that every country in the East Pacific combined would be occupied with fending it off, and probably could not launch their own strikes on the US mainland.
That's ridiculous.
Another aspect of a global war would involve submarines, which unsurprisingly the US has more of than almost anyone else.
Of course.
Its fleet
They wrote a
contains
song about it.
53 fast
Yellow submarine, yellow.
attack submarines, 14 nuclear-capable ballistic missile subs, and 4
That's
guided
crazy.
missile subs. This massive fleet would allow the US to launch stealth attacks on enemy naval vessels anywhere in the world, completely undetected.
That's
While
sneaky.
America would be far more
These sneaky.
hard-pressed
Is that a
defend-
real photo, by the way? That is scary, dude. Like, I would just give up. If I see that fleet, I'm like, you know what? Never mind. Have our country.
And
Okay.
because Mexico, Canada, and other countries in the region are far less powerful, there is a good chance the US could blockade, control, or destroy the majority of their military
They
and
could just take
economic.
over. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Canada and Mexico don't seem to be as much of a threat, you know? Mexicans take siestas. Canadians are just so nice, dude. I don't know, they just making maple syrup up there, they're playing hockey. I think if they took the Canadian hockey players, they're the most dangerous people up there. I think Canadian hockey players, I've made a video reacting to hockey and it blew my mind. So I think Canadian hockey players could be a potential threat to the US, but the rest of the country is it's just a little weak. I think they would definitely take those over. Oh man, this is so crazy to think about that. Just America is so powerful, they can just, you know, Canada, you know, you belong to us now. It's insane.
Canada and Venezuela are both obvious targets because of their status as oil producers. Another obvious target is the Panama Canal, which serves as the gateway between the Atlantic and Pacific. Chile is another potential target as the country supplies 28% of the world's copper, critical for the production of modern electronics.
See, that's so important. They're like, we're gonna take Venezuela and Chile. The rest of South America, we don't care about. You know, they don't do anything too important. We don't need Brazilian barbecue or anything like that. We're just gonna focus on those two. We don't need Peruvian anticuchos or salchipapas. We don't care about that. Oh man, that's crazy. Fuck, man. I thought South America would have more of a chance. Maybe the cartels could kind of unite against America, but then again, they don't have the technology. But they're dogs, man. They're alpha. They're strong. Man, God damn, America. You know what this feels like? This feels like the election. It feels like Trump trying to take over the states in the electoral college. You know, it feels like they're some becoming blue, some becoming red.
Keep in mind that as of 2022, US military spending was $877 billion.
$877 billion spent on the military? That is insane, dude. That's only 130 billion shy of trillion. Is that correct? A trillion? I don't even know what that number means, dude. What's even a billion? What is Germany's military budget? What is Germany's military budget in 2023? 66 billion. So Germany's military budget was 66 billion, which is not even a tenth of the US military budget. That is ridiculous, man. But actually, America is also like way bigger. It's not, I thought it was maybe even less than that, but I don't know, maybe we just don't spend it right.
And more than the next 10 countries combined.
More than the next 10 countries.
Still only
That's insane. So the other 10 countries combined don't have the resources of what America has. And again, America, I think the advantage is also that they're one country. So it's easier to govern the country when it's just one country. Mind you, America is very divided, but not as divided as the rest of the world would be.
In a global war, this percentage would almost certainly increase and could rise to similar levels as World War II.
My God.
To gain a true strategic edge over the US, a global coalition would have to somehow outgun and outspend the Defense Department, while also maintaining their own smaller economies.
How do you maintain the economies, you know? Usually by invading other countries. I think that's what Hitler's plan was. I think he was gonna take over other countries, take their resources, that was gonna contribute to the economy. But that's crazy, dude.
Another crucial domain in a global conflict with the US would play out in cyberspace. This would probably be the first line of contact between the warring parties, as both sides would attempt to gain information superiority and take each other's systems offline.
100%. Because I think a couple months ago there was like an outage of some Microsoft server. The flights were cancelled. It's insane how dependent we are in the world on technology. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I was at the airport and my flight was cancelled many times. I was doing a show in, I think it was in Boston, came back from Boston, couldn't come back because they couldn't figure out my ticket because the server was down. I'm like, what world do we live in? One Microsoft kind of server is down or whatever happened, all the airports were closed, which is insane. That happens on accident, I guess. I mean, there's probably some conspiracies about it. But the fact that, you know, you can just have an attack that would stop online communications between, say, Germany and all the other European countries, or even countries like China, they're fucked, because then they're on their own. And that will play a huge role. But I think if all the other countries could mobilize and get behind each other and have one plan, I think they might have a better chance. But if comms are off, the rest of the world would be fucked. This is crazy, man.
While US Cyber Command would almost certainly be overwhelmed with attacks by
I just also want to point out, this is the most American shit I've ever seen. This is the US military, and they have Rockstar energy drink and a muffin right there. And that's why I love America, dude. This is just hilarious. I love that cops like eat donuts. That's just America, but they just get shit done, you know? We make fun of them, but apparently they're still better than us, you know? Like, we have better nutrition probably in Europe, but we still little pussies. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe America runs on Dunkin', and that's why they would outrun the world. What if this was just a big ad? Do you think this is a product placement? You know? America versus the world. And then, you know, they have Rockstar as a sponsor in this video.
And while it's not as dominant in cyberspace as in the real world, the US still has by far the most capable and best funded capabilities in the world. In the 2024 fiscal year, US cyber spending will rise to more than $25 billion.
I think that's probably more important nowadays, like I said before, than anything else. The cyber spending, that's so important, dude. Here's the thing, America in that case, you just have a perfect country. If you ever look at America, you've got a bunch of guys with pickup trucks and guns who are just men who can take care of shit and can actually fight and defend the country or attack another country. But then you have a bunch of nerds, you know? You have a bunch of nerds that are just, you know, playing Fortnite, all the Gen Z kids in America, and they're gonna be great hackers. And what would we Germans do? We play soccer. We don't have skills that can be used for warfare, so makes sense, dude.
All the elements point to a big conclusion. The US is so powerful that it could take on the rest of the world for weeks or months with no certain winner. Because of this, such a hypothetical conflict would likely become a war of attrition in both the physical and digital worlds. The US would work to starve the world's other major powers of oil, war supplies, and other vital resources, while attempting to preserve its own. That's just a crazy thought. But also I was thinking, what if you have a hack that is so powerful? Because technological stuff could really bypass a lot of the military strength also. What if you have a virus? You're like a country like Lithuania, okay? And you have a virus that can infiltrate all the military bases and take control of their missiles and use them against each other. This is maybe a crazy thing to think, and obviously I'm not an expert on this and don't trust anything I say, but think about that. If a country could take control of the controls of like these missiles
which are all, I mean, there's sure a lot of back-end security, but if they can hack into Microsoft servers or whatever the fuck they hacked into, it's not that far off to assume that some hackers have the capabilities to hack, especially with the help of AI, to hack into a military control center. And if they do that, countries could just attack themselves. What if they take control of France's, military arsenal, and then France just attacks Germany, and then we're all fucked? So I think the cyber warfare is probably so much more important at this stage and so much more powerful. It's almost like a virus. If you have a virus, or if you have an AI that you can set free. I've seen enough of the AI movies. There's a movie with Megan Fox, and Megan Fox is like this AI, and all of a sudden she takes control of other AIs, and then she just like becomes an evil AI that infiltrates the system and overrides other AIs. It's crazy to think about, but we're not too far away from that. Like, that's kind of crazy to think about. You can hack into every car, and you can create traffic outages, and you can create traffic jams. You can block everything. You can basically stop an entire country from existing and running, both economically and just from a logistics standpoint. So this is crazy, man. The fact that cyber warfare is much more important, that is crazy. And also, to me, one thing that's being disregarded in this video maybe is also biochemical warfare. There's a lot of conspiracies about COVID, but what if you have like a mega super virus in a lab that you just drop in Europe while there's a war happening, or in America, vice versa? I think that could also really fuck with the country. Imagine how much COVID messed up the whole world. Imagine that would happen, when there's war, there wouldn't be as much exchange between the countries. So it's just a crazy thought. And a lot more weapons that could be used. And I think in any case, there shouldn't be another war, because I think it would just be fatal. And in reality, there would probably be nuclear warfare involved, which would just cause everybody to lose. It is a scary thing to think about, actually.
Because of the US military's global presence, most of the fighting would likely happen elsewhere, opening theaters of war everywhere from the Middle East to South America and East Asia. In the end, the victor would almost certainly be whichever side could outlast the other.
I love that Africa is just completely out of the picture. They've never talked about Africa. Dude. Wakanda is an important ally, dude. Don't underestimate Wakanda.
And all of the speculation above excludes the most powerful part of the equation, nuclear weapons. Because of the principle of mutually assured destruction, no country really wants to use them today. However, it's worth noting that the US has over 1,400 actively deployed nukes, and in any real global conflict, they could be used to give any non-nuclear country a very permanent end.
That is so scary to say that, a very permanent end. A permanent end. That is... He said that so dry. Oh, God.
We should remember that the cost of human life in any worldwide conflict would be staggering, and that even winners in such a war would suffer. But what do you think? Would the US really be able to win a war against the rest of the world? Or would the country eventually be overwhelmed?
Holy shit. If any country was cut out for warfare, it's the United States of fucking America, man. And at the end of the day, that's why I'm glad I'm here. I feel like I picked the right side by living here in the US. It's very fascinating, man. I just want to see what some of the comments say. The word, let's invade the US. American citizens, hold my beer. That is so fucking true. That's how it would work. That's exactly how it works. I think if it's about civilians, I will say, yeah, America definitely would win. I said it before, American civilians seem better suited for warfare. They seem just more like alphas, right? Imagine invading the shore and you see millions of people in t-shirts with guns. That is exactly what I was imagining. I was just imagining, you start a war and usually it's like, it was the Germans in Nazi Hugo Boss uniforms, and then you're gonna be fighting dudes with flip-flops and Hawaiian shirts and MAGA hats. I think that'd be a hilarious warfare. I mean, if war is funny in any way, it would definitely be that. And they would win. If you get defeated by a country that invades you in flip-flops and Hawaiian shirts, then you don't deserve to be a country. And you should be taken over by America. This is hilarious. Next, USA versus the Milky Way. Who would win? This is so fucking funny, dude. This is a crazy thought experiment. I'm overwhelmed. What do you think about this? Do you think the US would win? This is a very interesting video. I still have to digest this. Let me know if you like these videos. Subscribe to the channel for more videos. Also, again, see me live on tour. I'm doing stand-up comedy. I'm coming all over the US. Hopefully, there won't be a war. And let's all love each other, right? Show some love in the comments and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you next week. Auf Wiedersehen. Goodbye.